paradox lies at the beginning of this week's parashah. God speaks to Moses in the no man's land of the desert on Mount Sinai and says to him, "When you enter the land that I assign to you, the land shall observe a Sabbath of the Eternal One." The paradox lies in that verse. "I'm giving it to you," says God, "Ani noten lachem," but it is not yours. It cannot be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine, and you are but strangers, resident with me. As Nachmanides says in his commentary to this parashah, "Al ta'asu atzmechem ikar," do not imagine that you yourselves are the point of it all. Nachmanides, the 13th century Catalan-born biblical commentator, philosopher, and Kabbalist, lifts this verse out of its literal context, the sabbatical and jubilee years. This verse, he says, is not about you. It's not even about this life. So don't imagine you are at the center of it. For the land, the earth, is part of the secret mystery of world chronology. The land here refers to the world to come, where the dead will come to rest. Drawing on Talmudic and mystical traditions, Nachmanides offers a particular reading of the sabbatical and jubilee year laws, and his lengthy and involved commentaries to the Torah, which are peppered with elitist statements such as, "If you are worthy, you will comprehend what I'm telling you," are not always easy to follow. But how should we read this parashah as liberal Jews? How, for example, do we understand the phrase that God spoke to Moses Bahar Sinai, on Mount Sinai? Here is one of the only times the Torah prefaces specific laws stating that God speaks to Moses on Mount Sinai. It's echoed in very general terms in Nehemiah's prayer to God. "You came down on Mount Sinai and spoke to them from heaven. You gave them right rules and true teachings, good laws and commandments." Surely, as Rashi says, all the commandments were given on Mount Sinai. Why specifically mention it here and in no other place in the Torah? For liberal Jews, Sinai is a powerful symbol of revelation. We are not required to believe that the Torah was given at one historic moment in one place, but that it was conceived and written down over a long period of time and by different authors, legislators, and poets. This critical scientific way of understanding the authorship of the Torah does not efface the symbolism of Sinai, but it allows us to read and interpret the Torah, listening to its multivocality and discerning multiple truths, as well as struggling with those passages that might deeply offend our ideas of inclusivity, universalism, pluralism, equality, or peace. Revelation in Jewish terms is not, as in Christianity, revelation of God's self, but a focus on the Torah, the texts that are passed down from generation to generation, and from which we continue to read and study. Sinai, therefore, is a continuous process. It is, as Alan Brill says in his essay on Jewish models of revelation, a personal experience and individual engagement. Important though it is to understand the sabbatical and jubilee years within the biblical legal context, the liberal Jewish concept of revelation allows us to draw out new wisdom and new truths from these laws, and to ask ourselves what regulations are urgently needed today to safeguard our planet. Allowing the lamb to lie fallow for 1 year requires us to abstain from any kind of exploitation and use of the land for our own ambitious purposes. But the text takes us further. It challenges us in our relationship with others, with those from different walks of life, the poor, the indentured slave, even with animals. Revelation, says Brill, in an analysis of Rabbi Joseph Dov Soloveitchik's essay Confrontation, is the divine moral challenge directing humanity to its destiny as a free, creative being able to engage in moral commitment. That responsibility, letting the land lie fallow, is our commitment to the planet, to its sustainability, not for our own uses, but because its existence is invaluable to itself. Revelation is humanity's inner awareness of both the beauty and the devastating diminishment of the natural world, the countless loss of species of birds, frogs, insects, plants, and trees. Revelation implies an imperative and commitment to action. And the parasha also deals with another dimension of our moral commitment to human beings, and in particular individuals who find themselves in straits. Every 50 years, in the years of the Jubilee, says the Torah, each person shall return to their holding and to their family. This ideal social vision was probably highly impractical and never put into practice, but its message, nevertheless, is crucial. 4 times the parasha, just 1 chapter, refers to the individual who is in straits, who is forced to sell part of their holding, who becomes dependent on a family member, or in danger of being treated as a slave. Here again, Revelation implies our commitment to upholding the rights of all human beings, to equity, righteousness, and compassion. If Revelation is not rooted in a particular moment of time, in a specific place, and if we cannot accept the Torah as the result of direct divine communication, what then can Revelation mean for us as liberal Jews? Here, the word prophetic comes to mind, not in the sense of predicting the future, but of seeing our Torah texts through the eyes of the Hebrew prophets, and especially through the exhortations and values they address to the people. Jeremiah, living through the siege of Jerusalem, the devastation of Judah, a land from which the birds of the sky have fled, the farmland is desert, all its towns in ruin, the skies dark above, becomes a witness to suffering. Thus said the Eternal One, a cry is heard in Ramah, wailing, bitter weeping. Rachel is weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted for her children who are gone. The prophet sees and records the painful truths of war, famine, starvation, disease, and deportation in Jerusalem. His suffering is visceral. Oh, my suffering, he says, how I writhe. Oh, the walls of my heart moans within me. I cannot be silent. To be silent for Jeremiah is to be complicit in his people's obdurate refusal to follow an ethic of righteousness, justice, and sincerity. You, he says to his people, did not listen. You did nothing of what God commanded you to do. You have caused this misfortune to befall the city and its inhabitants. You have done nothing but evil in God's sight since your youth. If he is fearful of speaking out against the people's injustices and cruelty, he does not betray his own terror, except perhaps his fear of dying. Even when accused of defecting to the Babylonians, and he is captured, beaten, imprisoned, and eventually thrown into a pit without water or food, he does not cease to be a witness, condemning his people's abominations, but also giving expression to words of comfort and hope. As liberal Jews, a primary way for us to understand Revelation and read the Torah as a living text is in the light of the prophets' witness to the events taking place in their own day, the painful and searing truths they address to their own people, their own inner conflict and suffering, torn by their love for the Jewish people and the awareness of God's anger against them. Lonely, persecuted, vulnerable to the whims of kings, Revelation is about the deliverance of truth, and although fraught with danger, there can be, say the prophets, glimpses of light, healing, and hope. Amen.